Greetings, friends and fellow rebels. Since it's come up recently, I want to clarify my rather unorthodox way of looking at foul language, or in other words, curse words, which, when we use them most often, aren't actually curses. I know how to do curses, and curse words, usually used without intention, are not it. So, let's take a look at them. Curse words, the stating of a word, an expletive, a word in anger, to insult or to release upset. For instance, if we're in pain and we need to release that energy, we choose a word that, for most of us, is considered disgusting. However, there is an inbuilt class system to curse words. In other words, the way we use them in English, the way we use them in Western civilization, is if you're lower class, those words that you use are crude and disgusting. If you're upper class, the words that you use are descriptive, intelligent, and acceptable. And this was very well engineered by the division between Anglo-Saxon. English, its base form, comes out of the Anglo-Saxon language, whereas you are combining two languages, the upper class Anglo and the lower class Saxon. It's fine to say the word urine in mixed company. Urine is an Anglo word. But in Saxon, that word is piss, which is a crude, derogatory, and disgusting word, a curse word. And yet, those two describe the same thing. In Anglo, you're looking at excrement. But in Saxon, you would say shit. It's the same thing, but one is a high class word and one is a low class word. So really what's happening when you start dividing words up between this is an acceptable word and this is a disgusting word is you are performing a hierarchy game of I'm better than you. I'm higher in class than you because I don't use those words. I don't use Saxon. Well, I use Saxon sometimes. I get salty sometimes. If I want to really accentuate how angry, how irritated I am about something, the Saxon words, they come out. And the people around me are aware that I'm having an emotional reaction to something. I try to limit my Saxon to either quoting someone or expressing deep anger toward a situation or a person. The less I use it, the more potency it has. But when I use it, I am aware of what I'm doing. I am aware that I'm playing the game of, ooh, look who's better, look who's a peasant, and look who's a king and queen, which isn't really ideal. Now, when the Europeans came into the North American continent and were introduced to the first peoples here, the people who migrated here much earlier than they did, the first people were very confused some of them, about why some descriptive words, some nouns, were considered to be bad words. Why would you say that when you're angry? It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't do anything. If you're angry and you're attacking someone and you say feces, does that mean anything? If you hit your finger with a hammer and you say excrement, does that mean anything? When they became angry, when they were attacking, or when they were trying to pull their energy up to deal with pain, any of that sort of thing. Not all of them, obviously. There are different tribes, different traditions. The one I'm familiar with, those I've talked to, those I've learned a little bit of their history. Don't ask me. It could be any one of 4 or 5. And my memory's not that great. And that was a long time ago. But what they talked about when they're angry and they're attacking, they call in animal sounds. The sound of a bear, the sound of a cougar, the sound of a wolf. Animal sounds. The kind of animal that they could connect with, usually totem to them, and align with the kind of energy that would solve the problem. So if they were in pain, they would want to do a bear sound because that big, strong animal could deal with pain a whole lot better. It's similar to the Asian with their martial arts, where they go in for an attack and they call out a sound so that the vital energies of the body can be directed in a certain direction toward their opponent to counteract an attack or to throw their energy along with their punch or their kick. Similar to that. The difference is, with the East Asian, they're very deliberately throwing the energy, whereas with the First Nation, they were tapping into the ley lines, into the totem creature, into the natural world. Similar process, but very different from calling out random disgusting words, or words that could be perceived as disgusting, but only if uttered in the Saxon dialect, the Saxon language. Perhaps if we stop reacting to random words that are being thrown out for shock value and look at things in a more practical way, we might have a better outcome when we're communicating with each other. On the other hand, a random piss or shit, it certainly tells you a lot about the person you're talking to. And perhaps they need to throw out a little bit of anger so that the subsequent conversation they have with you can happen in a calm and reasonable manner. We all have our challenges, and welcome to the woods.